Delaware has a clearly regulated late fee framework with a specific statutory cap that provides certainty for both landlords and tenants. The governing law is found in the Delaware Residential Landlord-Tenant Code, Delaware Code, Title 25, Chapter 55, which includes a specific provision addressing late fee limits. If you're a landlord or tenant in Delaware, the statutory framework is specific and well-defined. Let's start with the cap. Under Delaware Code, Title 25, Section 55U01, the landlord may charge a late fee, but the fee cannot exceed 5% of the monthly rental amount. This is a hard statutory ceiling. On a $1,400 rent, the maximum late fee is $70. On a $1,000 rent, the maximum is $50. Any lease provision that charges more than 5% is unenforceable to the extent it exceeds the cap. The 5% cap is calculated on the monthly rental amount, not on any additional charges, fees, or utilities. If the tenant owes $1,400 in rent plus $100 in utilities, the late fee is 5% of the $1,400, $70, not 5% of the combined $1,500. Delaware mandates a grace period. Under Section 5501, the landlord cannot charge a late fee until the rent is more than 5 days past due. If rent is due on the 1st, the late fee cannot be imposed until the 7th. The 5-day grace period is mandatory. The lease cannot shorten it. The lease can provide a longer grace period, but not shorter than 5 days. The combination of the 5% cap and the 5-day grace period creates a balanced framework. The landlord has a moderate fee to cover administrative costs, and the tenant has a reasonable buffer before any fee applies. The lease must clearly state the late fee terms. Under the Residential Landlord-Tenant Code, the fee amount and conditions must be specified in the rental agreement. A late fee that isn't documented in the lease is not enforceable. The lease should state the rent due date, the 5-day grace period, the exact fee amount up to 5%, and when the fee applies. Delaware's statute also addresses how the late fee is characterized. The late fee is considered a separate charge, not additional rent, unless the lease specifically defines it as additional rent. This distinction matters for the eviction process. If the fee is not defined as additional rent, it cannot be included in the amount demanded on a non-payment notice. If it is defined as additional rent, it can be included. Best practice: define late fees as additional rent in your lease. Compounding late fees in Delaware must comply with the 5% cap. If your lease charges an initial fee plus daily or weekly charges, the total of all late-related charges for a single month's rent cannot exceed 5% of the monthly rental amount. A compounding structure that pushes the total above 5% violates the statute. The simplest and safest approach, used by most Delaware landlords, is a single one-time fee at or below 5%. The interaction between late fees and the eviction process in Delaware is governed by the Residential Landlord-Tenant Code and the Summary Possession Statutes. Under Delaware Code Title 25, Section 5502, the landlord must provide a 5-day notice for non-payment of rent. If the tenant fails to pay within 5 days, the landlord can file for summary possession in Justice of the Peace Court. The amount demanded in the 5-day notice must be accurate. If late fees are defined as additional rent in the lease, they can be included. If not, the notice should demand only the unpaid rent. Including non-compliant fees in the notice can create grounds for the tenant to challenge the filing. Delaware's Justice of the Peace Court handles residential eviction proceedings efficiently. The courts process a significant volume of landlord-tenant cases, particularly in Newcastle County. Judges are experienced with late fee disputes and will scrutinize the amount claimed. Delaware provides the tenant with a right of redemption. The tenant can pay all rent and fees owed and stop the eviction before the court enters judgment. The redemption amount must include only compliant fees. An inflated amount that includes excessive late fees creates a dispute over what the tenant needs to pay to cure. Delaware limits the security deposit to 1 month's rent for leases of 1 year or longer, with no cap for shorter leases, though the deposit must still be reasonable. The deposit must be held in a federally insured institution. The deposit must be returned within 20 days with an itemized list of deductions. Unpaid late fees that comply with the 5% cap can be deducted if the lease authorizes it. Failure to return the deposit within 20 days can result in the landlord being liable for double the amount wrongfully withheld. Delaware's double damages provision makes clean late fee calculations at move-out particularly important. Deducting excessive fees from the deposit doubles the exposure. Delaware's consumer fraud statute, found in Delaware Code Title VI, Chapter 25, prohibits deceptive business practices. While primarily targeting commercial transactions, the statute can apply to residential rental practices. Systematic overcharging of late fees beyond the 5% cap could be challenged under this framework, providing an additional enforcement mechanism beyond the residential landlord-tenant code itself. For tenants receiving housing choice voucher assistance, Delaware landlords should not charge late fees when the housing authority's portion is delayed due to processing. The tenant cannot control the authority's payment timeline. If the tenant's portion is paid on time, the fee should apply only when the tenant's own payment is actually late. Delaware's military population is significant, centered around Dover Air Force Base. Dover AFB is home to the 436th Airlift Wing and the Air Force Mortuary Affairs Operations, the nation's largest military mortuary. The base generates significant military and civilian rental demand in the Dover area. Military pay is predictable, and most military tenants pay reliably. The 5-day grace period accommodates any minor pay processing delays. The New Castle County area, particularly the Wilmington suburbs, draws some military demand from nearby installations in neighboring states, including Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey and Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. Delaware's lack of sales tax and relatively affordable housing compared to New Jersey and Maryland attract some cross-border military renters. From a practical standpoint, Delaware's rental market is small but has distinct regional dynamics. New Castle County, encompassing Wilmington, Newark, and the northern Delaware suburbs, is the state's largest and most active rental market. The economy is driven by financial services. Delaware's incorporation-friendly laws have attracted virtually every major bank and credit card company, pharmaceuticals, including the AstraZeneca corridor, healthcare, including Christiana Care, and the University of Delaware in Newark. Rents in New Castle County typically range from $1,200 to $1,800, higher in the Greenville and Brandywine Hundred areas, lower in other parts of the county. Most New Castle County landlords charge the full 5% with a 5-day grace period. The professional tenant base, drawn from financial services, pharmaceutical, and corporate employment, generally pays on time. The University of Delaware's enrollment creates student demand in Newark. Student late payments correlate with financial aid processing. The 5-day grace period typically covers the delay. The student rental market in Newark is competitive and well-established. Wilmington has a diverse market, premium rents in Trolley Square and riverfront areas versus more affordable rents in other neighborhoods. Late payment dynamics vary by neighborhood and demographic. Dover, the state capital, has a moderate market influenced by state government, Dover AFB, and Delaware State University. The dual government military tenant base provides stable demand. State employees and military tenants both pay reliably. Late fee enforcement is standard but minimal. Kent County, surrounding Dover, has a more affordable market with moderate demand. Sussex County, the southern third of Delaware, has a growing market influenced by the beach communities of Rehoboth Beach, Lewis, Dewey Beach, and Bethany Beach. The Delaware beach communities have seasonal dynamics, strong summer demand from vacationers and seasonal workers, quieter off-seasons. Seasonal workers in the hospitality and restaurant industries may have income that fluctuates with tourist volume. Late payment patterns among seasonal workers may correlate with the tourist calendar. Strong income from Memorial Day through Labor Day. Reduced income in the off-season. Year-round residents in the beach communities, including a growing retirement population, generally pay reliably. The retirement migration to coastal Sussex County has increased demand for both rental and purchased housing. One best practice for Delaware landlords: set your late fee at exactly 5% of the monthly rental amount. The statutory cap is specific, and most Delaware landlords charge the maximum. If you prefer a lower fee, that's fine, but 5% is the standard across the state. Don't exceed it. Another best practice: clearly document the 5-day grace period in your lease. The grace period is mandatory, but documenting it explicitly prevents confusion. A tenant who sees a clear statement that the late fee applies on day 6 after the due date knows exactly where they stand. Ambiguity about the grace period creates unnecessary disputes. A third best practice: define your late fee as additional rent in the lease. This simple lease provision allows you to include unpaid late fees in the 5-day notice for non-payment, streamlining the eviction process if chronic late payment leads to that point. Without this definition, you may need to pursue late fees separately from the eviction, adding complexity and cost. For the complete guide to Delaware late fee laws, visit tenantscreeningbackgroundcheck.com. Subscribe to our channel for every state in our late fee law series. U.